People who don't speak English as a first language don't realize how little English Americans know.
Nowadays, I see a lot of content like this. Content that, in some ways, talking about a literacy crisis in the United States, or talking about how people in the United States don't know language very well. And while I'm not saying there isn't a literacy crisis, I'm not saying there aren't people who are illiterate, I do quibble with this quite a bit, because what it reminds me of is word gap discourse, the idea that some children hear up to 30 million more words than others, and the children that hear more words tend to perform better academically. And the problem with the word gap is that it's not really real, because among other things, the original study didn't properly take into account words that children might overhear or listen to as a bystander. It didn't properly take into account race and ethnicity and those factors. It didn't really thoughtfully examine multilingual children and families. It didn't really thoughtfully examine input that a child might get from multiple caregivers. Really, what the initial study did was take language patterns often used by white, middle, and upper class Americans and label that as the sort of gold standard for quality linguistic input, and along the way relegate other ways of communicating as a lesser status. And with literacy crisis discourse, I'm seeing a lot of the same shit. I'm seeing people who I would assume probably aren't thinking about things like metathesis or negative concord or the punctual never, but they'll take these things that are often associated with black people or regional varieties of American English and use them as markers of bad English or illiteracy. But linguistically, we know this to not be true. We know that language is always changing and it's different language varieties, and these varieties might have different grammars, but not bad grammars. And negative judgments like that are often more tied to the people using the language rather than the language itself. And again, I'm not saying that there aren't illiterate people in the US. I'm not saying that you shouldn't read. I'm not saying that you shouldn't talk to your kids. But what I am saying is that you can take these linguistic ideas and apply them racistly.